Hello and welcome to the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter, and I have been your beat reporter covering the Jacksonville Jaguars for On SI every single day since August 2019, and we are continuing to move forward through another offseason together. As always, you can always find our 100% free 24/7 boots on the ground content covering the Jacksonville Jaguars every single day on social media such as Facebook and Twitter when you follow us at Jaguars on SI. You can also find us at www.si.com/NFL/Jaguars. All right, folks, today we are going to talk about 3 Jaguars players who need a bounce back season in 2025. There is, frankly, quite a few players who could fall on this list because it seems like in terms of production, everybody who was a returning player other than Trayvon Walker took a step backward. Brian Thomas Jr. obviously had a great year. Brendan Strange, I guess, would be an exception. He had a better year than he had the year before. But otherwise, across the board, the Jaguars' individual player production seriously took a step backward from 2023, 2022, just due to the dismal events that were the 2024 season. Now, there are a few players who I won't have on here who I would say you can consider honorable mention. One of them is Josh Hines-Allen. He went from 17 and a half sacks the year before to 8 sacks last season. The pressures didn't really go down. He was still one of the NFL's best pressure players, had the 9th most pressures in the NFL. I think, does he probably want more sacks this year? I'd say so, but he was still an effective player last year. So I'm not sure if bounce back is really the correct word. And then Foye Oluokun, last year dealt with injuries for the first time in his Jaguars career. The previous 2 seasons, he was one of the NFL's most effective linebackers just in terms of being consistent, being there every snap, the amount that they put on his plate, the amount of tackles he recorded. So I wouldn't say bounce back necessarily because last year he was definitely due more to, I'd say, injuries and the fact that they rotated their linebackers, which was the first time I've really seen that. So that's, in my opinion, 2 guys who I think you could probably put an honorable mention on this list. I think the first guy you have to talk about when you talk about Jaguar bouncing back next season has to be Trevor Lawrence. Obviously last season for Trevor was not what anybody really foresaw. It was probably the worst case scenario, I'd say. Probably the worst season of his career just in terms of the expectations heading into it and then what ended up happening. He only played 10 games. First time in his career, he didn't play at least 16 games. For example, his previous career low in pass attempts was 564. He only threw 284 passes last year. It's really in a lot of ways like he barely played last year. 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, only 2,045 yards. It was a definitely down year for Trevor compared to what so many people were hoping for and expecting. Now, obviously, his rookie year was terrible all the way around, both in terms of production and everything going on around him. But I'd say last year, nobody was really expecting the Jaguars, in my opinion, to go 4-13 and just completely implode. And for Trevor to have so many injuries, he missed 7 games. Even in one of those starts that he made, he was seriously injured. That last one he made against the Houston Texans. So he needs a bounce back year. And in terms of what he needs and to have that bounce back year, number one, I think he has to stay healthy. A lot of the injuries that have happened the last couple of years, he had, I think, 6 injuries over the last 2 seasons. Some of them have just been, can't avoid it. It's part of the game. And then some of them are, okay, this is a young guy who's trying to do a lot. He needs to protect himself a little bit. I think back to that shoulder injury against Tampa Bay. And frankly, I think about the shoulder injury versus Philadelphia. As the franchise quarterback, they go nowhere without him. So he needs to be in the lineup. So to me, that's the most important aspect of his season coming up is he just has to be healthy. Now, in terms of his play last season, I thought that he had a good 2023 season. Obviously, the numbers went down by the end of the year. He had that one game against the Cleveland Browns where communications led to several interceptions. I thought up until he got hurt, he was playing pretty well last year. I mean, that duel he had with CJ Stroud in Houston, he was playing terrific against the Bengals before he got hurt. But once the injuries kind of set in, you saw, he was put together by popsicle sticks and bubblegum at that point. Last year, I thought you actually saw instances of him playing not well, in my opinion, before he got injured. I think the first month of last season is probably the worst he's played since he's a rookie. Really tough outing against the Browns, really tough outing against the Bills, really tough outing against the Texans. Those are 3 games in a row that it just looked rough for Trevor. In my opinion, he picked it up pretty significantly after that and was actually playing some pretty good football up again until he got hurt against Philadelphia in, I believe it was week 9, then gets hurt again against the Houston Texans. So, yeah, his play was up and down last year, in my opinion, before he got hurt, but he has started to turn things around. The biggest thing is, again, staying healthy. If he doesn't get hurt last year, maybe he strings together another couple of performances and has a more encouraging year than he ended up having. The next guy on this list, in my opinion, has to be Tyson Campbell. Tyson Campbell had a true breakout season in 2022. He looked like one of the best up-and-coming cornerbacks in the NFL, but the last 2 seasons, a lot of injuries. He missed 6 games in 2023. He missed 5 games last year, only played in 12 games. Last year was actually the first year he didn't record an interception. He only recorded 6 pass breakups. It just was not the year that, Tyson Campbell has had in the past. He's another guy who, a lot like Trevor, in my opinion, when he's healthy, he plays really solid, really good football. In my opinion, a healthy Tyson Campbell has the ability to be a top 10 to 12 to 15 cornerback in the NFL today. But when he's injured, that's the issue. Because 1, he's missing games. 2, sometimes he's playing and he's not 100%. And then he's just not Tyson Campbell. He's not the dominant cornerback he is normally when he is healthy. So I think just being healthy to him is the biggest step to him having a bounce-back season. He had a really good offseason. There's no questioning that. And they seemed absolutely, the coaching staff, jacked up about this guy. He challenged Brian Thomas Jr. even a lot in practices. I'd say Tyson Campbell was one of the best performers of the entire offseason. And they're now moving towards that more vision-based zone coverage, off-coverage scheme that he should have more chances to make plays on the ball than he had last year, as I think, Daniel Griffiths has put out that stat that him and Buster Brown had the highest, percentage of press coverage snaps last season, something along those lines. So I think he has more of a chance to be a playmaker this season. It's just the number one thing is he, of course, has to remain healthy. And then the last one, health has been a consistent theme in this, and it's true here as well. Travis Etienne. He had last year, if you look at his season last year and then his previous 2 seasons, it just looks like a complete anomaly. I mean, he played in 15 games last year, so he only really missed 2 starts, but he was banged up for a lot of the year. But his yards per attempt was a career low 3.7, yards per game 37.2, career low. His carries were obviously at a career low. His yards went from 1,008 the year before to 558. Only 2 touchdowns after 11 touchdowns the previous year. He also caught fewer passes, career low receiving yards, career low success rate as a receiver. It was just a lot of career lows for Travis Etienne last year. And he's another guy who, he only missed 2 games last year, but in my opinion, you could tell he was kind of hampered by that hamstring injury he had early in the season, kind of throughout the year. And then also they had Tank Bigsby, who's playing well at spurts. But then, to me, the biggest thing to do with his production outside of his health is that obviously the Jaguars were one of the worst run-blocking offensive lines in the NFL for the last couple of seasons now. So I think Travis Etienne, if the offensive line improves, he can certainly have a chance towards having a bounce-back season. I think the running scheme itself will obviously be better with Liam Cohen overseeing it as opposed to the last regime's kind of construction of the running game, which, as we've said before, it seems like they had like the most variety in their running game among NFL teams last year because they ran everything. They just weren't good at it. It's like they were trying to find something to be like, dear God, can we be good at this? And they just couldn't. So I think if their offensive line improves this year, I think you see a better year from Travis Etienne because now I don't think he's one of the NFL's elite backs, but he's certainly better than, in my opinion, what the numbers showed last season. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode. My name is John Shipley. Don't forget to find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other platforms at the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. Please review, like, and subscribe. And you can also find us on YouTube at Sports Videos on SI.